Hello and welcome to the Capital Area Theater Show. I am your host, Jeremy Patterson, and with me today is local actor, director, educator, stage manager, so many other titles I'm sure that I'll find out today, Karen Ruch. Hello, Karen.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for sitting down. So, primarily, I wanted to talk to you today about your upcoming directorial endeavor, As She Likes It, but before we get into that,
Okay.
I thought you could give our listeners a bit of your background.
A little bit of my background.
Yeah, a chance to tell your story.
Oh, yeah, sure. Depends on how far you want to go back. But really, I've been living here in Harrisburg and doing theater for 20-some years, and had a lot of great opportunities to work with different companies and do a lot of different things. So you're right. I've been an actor. I've been a stage manager. I've been a technical director. Designed props, and did I say director? So a number of things. I did get to teach theater school a couple times for Gamut Theater, so I've been very fortunate to get an opportunity to create a lot of different things and collaborate with a lot of people. And it's brought me to a year of a very diverse year, I think, of things I've been doing this year, which is great. I like to mix it up a little bit. So getting to stage manage a bit this year, do some properties design for Seagull, and now I'm working on Hamlet down in Lancaster, and then it's going to lead to probably the most challenging endeavor of the year, which is As She Likes It this summer. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have all of these different hats that you wear.
Yeah.
Where did you get started with your interest in theater?
Oh, okay. All right. So, it takes me back probably to when I was a kid, and I've told a number of people there were a couple shows that I saw. My parents were really wonderful about exposing us, my sisters and I, to the arts and encouraging us to be involved and also to appreciate. And so there were a couple shows. There was a show of Dracula, actually, that my mom took me to. I think it was at Muhlenberg College. And I just remember, who knows how old I was, probably 10, 11, something like that. And there was just this moment when, his coffin is revealed that it was behind this scrim that was part of the proscenium the entire show, and you never saw it, of course, because it was front lit. And suddenly it's backlit, and suddenly this entire room where his coffin is, and it was revealed, and it was magical, right? It was this magical moment of like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I remember, I so distinctly remember that moment of like, I want to be able to create this kind of magic, because you were so immersed in the world. And who knows, it might have not been a great production. I really can't judge by, with the distance of time, but it was very effective, and it triggered something in me of like, these people create worlds and they create magic, and I was like, I want to do that. And so that was one thing. I also got an opportunity when I was a kid to see Pippin on Broadway.
Okay.
With the original cast, and that too was just, we were in nosebleed world, and it was the first time I used opera glasses and all of that, but again, it was just so, it just touched me in a way that I was like, what these people are doing is incredible, and I want to be able to do that. So that was really, I think that was the seed.
Okay.
Those were the seeds, those kinds of things of getting to see shows and see what people could create. And so, fast forward a little bit, then I started getting involved in theater in high school and also in college. And of course, when I went to college at Penn State, I did not go for theater.
Okay.
I have a bachelor's in science in wildlife and fisheries science, because I wanted to be Jane Goodall is really what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But the entire 4 years I was there, I worked with the Penn State Thespians, who were the student group,
Okay.
the student theater group on campus at Penn State. And when I was there, they were celebrating like their 100th year of being in existence. So an amazing tradition with the Thespians, and they did 2 musicals every year, which is so funny because I'm not a musical person. But that's how I got to do theater, and I got to help my friends out with their directing projects and their acting projects who were theater majors. But I just kept doing it,
So there wasn't a teacher moment or a classroom moment. It's just like it was always in your life, so it was always a part of your life in that sense.
Yeah. It was always a part of my life. I mean, I took a couple, theater classes as electives, but I tell people, I'm like, I don't have formal training, and it's a bit of an embarrassment sometimes, but I've worked with a lot of great people, and I think I know that I learn from every single person I work with.
Yeah.
And I've learned to be. I learned in college also to be a better stage manager, and because I learned with an amazing woman who was just an incredible manager of people and situations and crises and all of that, and that was a lot of great experience too. So I did all of that, and then which brought me eventually a few years after I graduated here to Harrisburg, and lo and behold, I saw in the newspaper the Harrisburg Shakespeare Festival was starting, and I contacted them, and it took a little while for our relationship to develop, but eventually I got to work with them a good bit, and it's just sort of grown from there, and just getting a chance to work with lots of different people. So that's a little bit of the track, but yeah, it was always just a part of my life, and always something I wanted to do. Even today, I tell people who ask, what do you do? People just meet me, and I say, oh, I work in theater, even though I have a day job that pays my bills.
Yeah.
But that is, to me, my work in theater is the work of my life. The thing I do to pay my bills is exactly that.
Yeah.
So I wish I could do the thing that I love to pay my bills, but maybe someday.
Yeah. That's the dream.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Okay, so now you said you saw in the paper that they were doing the Harrisburg Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah.
And you said earlier that you're not really a musical person.
Mm-hmm.
So, in all your time at Penn State, was it a thing where that's what you were seeking out to do Shakespeare or to do classic plays?
Yeah.
Because you don't only do classic theater. I mean, you've done some great contemporary work at Open Stage of Harrisburg.
I have. I've been a Shakespeare geek for about as long as I can remember, and that's a term of endearment, in case anybody's wondering.
I'm sure on this show, everybody understands that
everyone
that's
understands that is truly a positive thing. I think the first play I read, I was probably 8, something like that. I read Tempest, and I didn't understand all of it. I really didn't. I'll be honest, but it was the language and the rhythm and the magical nature of it, and the fantasy and the relationships. I was drawn in, and the verse, it was just fun. The words, I love words. I've always loved words. Ask my mother. I never shut up. But it's so I think that again, it was another seed, planting this whole forest.
Yeah.
And I think that one stuck with me a big time. But yeah, it drew me in. I did some Shakespeare in high school. We did a couple Shakespeare plays.
Do you remember which ones or
The
your
Taming
roles
of the
were?
Shrew was the first one.
Okay.
That I worked on. I'm trying to remember. Oh goodness, I know there was another one. It's not coming to me, but that's okay. But also just in in our drama club and whatever in high school, we'd do monologues from it and stuff like that. And I also had some great English teachers.
Okay.
Because nothing will kill a child's love of Shakespeare like a bad English teacher who doesn't like it, doesn't understand it, or doesn't let the kids enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think there's there's much better education about Shakespeare now than there used to be. And so I managed to skip over the ones that didn't handle it well and focus on a couple teachers who really let us enjoy what it was and read it aloud and enjoy the language and talk about how it related to us. Of course, we get to do things like Romeo and Juliet, which usually appeals to the young kids pretty well. And of course, Midsummer is an easy entry play. But then, and again in college, I took an elective, which was a Shakespeare class. So I wanted to, I want to do this again. And so that was just so exciting to see that in the newspaper. Like, wait, I moved to Harrisburg, and then they're starting a Shakespeare festival here. How amazing. you
Yeah.
know? And that summer they did 2 shows, and I went to see both, and then contacted them, and eventually came on board as a volunteer, and just kind of kept working with them
Okay.
through, as a volunteer coordinator, started doing tech with them. I know Clark still laughs sometimes. We have a good chuckle over one of the first times when they did Julius Caesar. I volunteered as an usher, and I volunteered for as many nights as I could come to the show, because I was just, obviously I was hungry for this. I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, that was pretty, I was obviously pretty hungry to get involved.
Yeah.
But I said, can I volunteer on the last night? Because I said, do you guys strike the set after the show? Because I'd love to volunteer to usher and then stay and help you guys take apart the set. And they went, really?
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely. Should I bring tools? And so I did. And because strike of a show is always one of those things that I find really important for me. It's an amazing part of the closure of the experience. And so I was just so excited. I'd been away from theater for so long that, I was excited by the prospect of getting my hands back on scenery and being a part of the team that takes this thing apart that everyone built together, And it's not a destructive thing. It's just a completion sort of thing.
Okay.
So I did. So I just right in there, and there were most of the cast had no idea who I was. They were just, who's this person who's taking apart platforms and stuff, and I was like, hi, I'm Karen. I'd really love to be involved, kind of stuff. So, yeah. So that was how I started with what is now Gamut Theater, and back then they were the Harrisburg Shakespeare Festival. So, but yeah. So that was, but the Shakespeare stuff. What I love about it, I said the language, but also I love the opportunity to just dig in and find how it still speaks about our humanity. There is a reason these plays have continued to be done for so many years, and there's a lot of amazing contemporary drama, no doubt. But I also do really, really love to dig into those classics that have lasted, because I think there's a reason they have.
Yeah.
And I've it's funny, right now I'm doing Hamlet, playing Gertrude for the second time in my life, and finding whole new worlds in this show and in the relationships, and in this woman, and why she does what she does, because it's an enigma sometimes, I think. So that's, yeah, who doesn't want that kind of puzzle, to rediscover something all the time?
Yeah.
That's a gift, that's a gift. And thank you, William Shakespeare, and all of those publishers that have maintained the work for us for all those years.
Yeah.
So, So yeah, so that's my Shakespeare
Okay.
connection.
Well, now since we're gonna start walking through your titles.
Okay.
Now you had mentioned three shows. You mentioned uh, Dracula, and you said the
Uh-huh.
magic of that moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You mentioned Pippin,
Uh-huh.
which literally opens with them saying magic to
Magic to
do.
do. Mm-hmm.
And then you talked about The Tempest as the Shakespeare play, and
Yeah.
that has a lot of magic in it.
Yeah.
So, as someone who's done so much on the side of the production that's creating that magic,
Yeah.
can you talk me through some of those, some shows or some techniques or some moments that really for you have fulfilled that dream of creating that magic?
Yeah. Oh wow, you've opened the door into my psyche. Yeah, obviously this connection to magic. But what I find really funny is that it's magic, but the words are hard. It's hard to put this in words, but I will try. That I think what actors do, what theatrical designers do, is they present a version of the truth. And it takes a lot of work to do that. You know, all of us live our lives in truth, in the world. You know, we're just things that are happening are really happening to us.
Yeah.
People we meet are really the people we meet. And so our job in theater is to recreate that, that experience. But it takes a lot of work to recreate it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's incredible and an amazing testament to how wonderful just existence is and how incredible it is that it's there, that we all exist, that we all interact, and most of the time we get along.
Yeah.
Most of the time, probably on average, and that, you know, to recreate it. So yeah, so some of the toughest things to do are to recreate something very realistic. Case in point, I had to create a dead seagull this year. I had to create something as a properties designer that looked like a dead bird that was just shot, you know, a newly dead bird. And that took a lot of work to do that, you know, despite all of the sad and really not a good idea jokes that people made about it. Oh, just go out to the river and get one.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
that kind of
We made some ourselves in
Yeah.
episode 1 with Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that kind of thing. So those sorts of challenges, you know, or, you know, working as a stage manager at Open Stage, when we did Curse of the Starving class, where every night we had to deal with a real live lamb on stage, and a lamb who over the course of the rehearsal period and the 4-week run of the show, I think 4 weeks, grew. You know, because that's what lambs do.
Yeah.
Is it gets older, it gets more like a teenager, you know,
Okay.
gets more ornery. So you have to deal with that, but you still, you know, the actors have to do their job and interact with this live animal. And, you know, of course, being a Sam Shepard play, there's all kinds of technical things that are needed and things that make a mess on stage, because that's what Sam Shepard likes to do in his plays.
Yeah.
You know, so there's food and there's props and all kinds of things. You know, so being a part of those things, again, making something very real, making a very real interaction on stage, takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a wonderful challenge. But then you are creating fantasy too sometimes. So the first show that I directed here in Harrisburg was The Tempest. I kind of pitched that to Clark and Clark Nicholson, asked his permission to direct it because of my connection to the play early on. I'm like, I really want to do this. And also I think you need to play Prospero. So, but in that we had to create a fantasy world. You know, we had to create this magical world, and we created an entire set that was almost entirely made out of rope. Yeah, so a rope, wood, and books.
Ooh.
Because I think, you're on an island where shipwrecks happen, and so what's available?
Yeah.
And, I thought of tall ships and all of the rigging and the ropes and the sails and then also the driftwood of the broken, but then all of Prospero's books.
Yeah.
And so we made this giant tree in the middle of the set that was made of rope. And, so that was a completely fantastic, a completely fantasy world that we created. And it took a lot of work to do it. But I think in the end it was very effective, and you were able to, the audience was able to just kind of immerse themselves in it, and just sort of like accept that as the world as it was. And there were spirits who blended in with the set and then were able to emerge out of it, and those sorts of things. Like some of those are some of the, just a few examples of, like, on the technical side of things and the art, the design side of things, being able to, I think, create that magic, whether it's a fantasy or it's trying to be as real as possible. Both of them are creating magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving forward into directing.
Okay.
Now you talked about directing The Tempest as a debut for Harrisburg.
Yeah.
How much, and this is, I'm sure it varies from project to project, and I know it varies from person to person, but how much do you find yourself using the side of your brain that's that deals with the technical, with your technical crew? Like, you had your idea for your rope and your wood and that for your set.
Yeah.
How much is it where you say, this is what I want and what I need, and someone brings something new to it? And obviously it changed project to project, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about some of that collaboration.
Yeah, and it is truly a collaboration. And, I find most theater technicians to be artists. I will tell you, they're some of the hardest working folks I've ever met. And they also are amazing problem solvers. And so I think when you're talking to a designer, those folks always have feet in both worlds. Technical, how does this get done, versus how do we interpret this? And so I think there's no one single way or one single side of the brain that's engaged, and I think that's one of the exciting things about just any artistic endeavor is there's always a technical side of it, of how do I do this? I mean, you're a painter. There's technique involved in that, but also there's the creative side of interpreting. Like, anybody can put a swipe of green paint on the canvas. How you do that and what it means is there's the rub. You know? So I think in talking to technicians, designers, actors, there's not a lot of difference.
Okay.
I think in the way you talk about it, maybe you get into a different level of detail.
Okay.
Or try to focus to what their piece of the puzzle they need to talk to. Because I feel as a director, my job is to see the big picture, but not necessarily, I don't need to tell everybody every piece of the big picture that's in my head.
Okay.
They don't need to see all they need to get a, maybe a 10,000 foot view, but, that's the job, I think. The job of a director is to look out for all those little pieces and talk to this designer about how their piece is fitting in, talk to this actor about how their piece is fitting in, this stage manager, this person, how their piece is fitting in, but not necessarily, they don't need to worry about what the actor's doing specifically, like the specific actor choices. So So yeah, I think did that answer kind of where you were going with that?
Somewhat.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess it seems like you have such a large respect for every part of the process because you've been witness and a member of all these different camps. And I guess you answered it in the sense of letting me know how much respect you have for everybody, so I'm aware of your. And from working with you, I'm aware of how the emphasis you put on collaboration. I guess I wanted some specific collaborative stories or anecdotes,
yeah.
if you had any, and if
Well, just to continue, because we've already talked about the Tempest and the rope. So I kind of just threw that out there to, and that was a massively collaborative set. Clark actually did a lot of the design conceptual side of things. Mark Robinson, who was the technical director and also played one of the spirits on stage, he did a lot of the execution of it and kind of additional enhancing of the design. And then Tim Parsons, who is somebody who worked with us many years as a carpenter, and all around good team leader. He came in with ideas about how to execute some of the design idea with the rope, and so between the three of us, the three of them, and with my original, just like, here, take rope and do something, idea, it developed into this whole thing. I mean, we had a rope curtain across the back of the stage that the way they unraveled some of the rope made sort of like this wave across the stage, just in the texture of it. I mean, it was beautiful. And then just building onto this whole thing. So that's an example where I just sort of threw it out there, let them work on it, work through it. We found massive rope from some marina down in, I think, in Delaware or something, where they went and got like huge hanks of rope that were like 7 inches in diameter, and just brought some of that up and draped it all around the scaffolding. And just, it was a truly collaborative kind of design process. And then we had the spirits who then had to learn how to climb all over this stuff and climb up into it and work with it and drape themselves comfortably over a piece of scaffolding pipe, so that was a whole thing. And we had a movement work, somebody doing some movement work with the spirits and figuring out a way that they could work into the set and work out of the set and make all of these pictures that they became various things. I mean, at one point they became a chair that Prospero sat on, so that was just an extension, I think, of that same collaborative design process.
Yeah.
Was all the way to the actors who were on stage. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff that I get really excited about, is when it's sort of soup to nuts. Everybody's involved in a sort of a continuum.
Yeah.
Of like carrying through the concept of the show, the look of the show, the feel of the show, to a complete piece.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now we've talked about that as a directorial endeavor. Are there any other shows you'd like to talk about as far as that you've directed? Because after that, I have some other little pockets and side roads I want to go down.
Yeah. Well, I've had the opportunity to do 2 other park shows. The Shakespeare in the Park. Got to do Romeo and Juliet, which you were a part of.
Yeah. my first attempt at Shakespeare.
More than an attempt. That was a lot of fun. And then also Antony and Cleopatra. So those were shows in the park, other Shakespeare shows. I've also gotten to do some work on some shows for the Stage Door Ensemble, which is it's a side project, of some folks here at Gamut who decided we wanted to get together and produce some, expand on the programming for Gamut, but just as a fundraiser and to help support Gamut's mission and so I've gotten to do a few of those, like Importance of Being Earnest, which was a lot of fun. It was a staged reading where the scripts were a very important part of the show, and just getting to do stuff like that. And that was, with Stage Door, again, there's an opportunity where I got to be the director, the costume designer, and the props person for the same show. I don't recommend it. But it was still a lot of fun. Great cast and a great lot of fun. So anyway, so those are just a few examples. I was really privileged to 1 year direct the Diary of Anne Frank for Open Stage, which is such an important show to do and to keep doing. And I was really proud to be a part of that. So that was a great experience too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very sweet. Just, okay. Now, in Harrisburg proper, we have two essential regional theaters that are the professionals.
Yes.
Gamut and Open Stage. Mm-hmm. And you have a very good relationship with both.
I do.
So, now we've talked a little bit about your work as a director with Gamut, and I'm going to get back to asking you some of your acting stuff because you had mentioned doing Hamlet here. Yeah. But I was wondering if you'd like to talk a little bit about your work as an actress at Open Stage, because for me, when I met you, you were a director, so that was my first time being exposed to you. Yeah. And then I was very aware of your work with Gamut, but then seeing you in Gideon and then seeing you in Bill W. and Dr. Bob was one of those things where it was kind of like, there's this contemporary side, which talking to you today has been illuminating in the fact that it's, you're a lover of theater. Yeah. But a lot of the times, and I'm guilty, we kind of, there are people who compartmentalize as a classics or a contemporary person. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I am happy to not pigeonhole myself or anybody else. And that's an opportunity not a lot of people get. Like, I think sometimes if you're in a bigger theater market than Harrisburg is, and it's a really healthy, thriving theater community here. But I think what's wonderful about it is you get the opportunity to kind of do this and this and this and that. There's a lot of opportunity to sort of diversify yourself if you reach out and try to do it. I think actually the very first thing I did as an actor for Open Stage, let me just make sure I have this right, I think I do, is that I was called on at the 11th hour to step on stage for an actress who unfortunately had a health crisis and could not go on stage for a performance of August Osage County at Open Stage. And it's honestly, it was one of the most fun experiences of my life in the end. Terrifying, talk about adrenaline rush, all of that kind of stuff, is to just kind of have one kind of walk through rehearsal with the cast and then kind of walk on stage and try to be as off book as you possibly can. But thank goodness I had a book in my hand just in case. But it was a wonderful experience, and I was honored, absolutely honored that, I would get a call from some dear friends and colleagues in the theater community. Stuart gave me a call, and Don Alsadek had asked, like, are you available for the next 2 nights? Could you come in and do this? And, my thought initially was, oh God, they have a problem. What can I do? Yeah. That there was no hesitation. And then as soon as I said yes, then I was like, oh my Lord. What did I just agree to?
But I will say, phenomenal cast. I completely felt safe. I felt I felt held and supported, and I honestly just wanted to do a show that would not mess up their show. They're the ones who had put all the time and the effort into it. So I did that, and you know, I hope I had a great time, and I hope I did the cast proud, and I think, you know, from that, you know, Dawn got to see a little bit of like, oh, okay, this is maybe some things that Karen can do. And then Gideon's Knot came up, and they had auditions, and I was like, all right, I'm going for it. You know, I think I want to. I'd been a stage manager for Dawn several times at that point. I was like, okay, I think I want to try. You know, put my name in the hat to take the next step. And I was fortunate enough to be cast in a, that is a play. And that is a heck of a role.
Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about it?
Yeah, Gideon's Knot is a 2-person show about a teacher, an elementary school teacher, and a mother. And the mother's son recently, within the last, I think it's like 3 days or something like that, committed suicide. 5th grader committed suicide. And so because her son had been having difficulty in school, there had been a parent-teacher conference scheduled before he committed suicide. Then the suicide happened, and then the mother shows up to keep the appointment and basically confront the teacher about what was going on, what happened, because she honestly had no clue.
Yeah.
That her son was in this kind of state. Not necessarily the teacher's fault, but anyway, it's an intense play, and I got the great opportunity to work with Trish Bailey as my partner in that show, and that was a heck of a ride. And in the middle of it, I also had to have some emergency surgery in the middle of the rehearsal process. And so the opening night was exactly 3 weeks after I had surgery. And that was the only thing, when I was going in for surgery, the only thing I was worried about, I kept asking all my doctors is, I'm in a show. Am I going to be able to perform in 3 weeks? That was like my major concern, you know. And so, I had wonderful surgeon and all of those nurses and medical team, and it was so funny how they'd all come and talk to me and see me sitting in my hospital bed reading my lines, like studying my lines. And, it was really fascinating to kind of intersect the theater world with medical community.
Yeah.
Because folks are asking, like, well, how much do you have to dance? I'm like, well, it's really not that kind of play. And it is funny how many people automatically assume when you say you're in a show that it's a musical. Yeah, that you mean a musical. So I was like, no, but I do have to cry a lot. So so that was my first full show after that one little walk on with August Osage County, and then also auditioned for Bill W. and was fortunate enough to get cast in that as well. So and that's been a great. It's been a wonderful experience. Is getting to do let's step outside and do something that is not classical, so I hope to do more. I hope to have more opportunities.
Nice.
Kind of step outside the Shakespeare, Greek, whatever. Lysistrata. I didn't even talk about Lysistrata. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, ladies.
No, you have the opportunity. Please, now. This is the chance. Talk Lysistrata.
Yeah, stepping back to the director. I can't even believe I didn't even say
Especially
it.
Since you're our first female guest.
Oh yeah. So that was another show I got to direct. Oh my gosh, how much fun was that? Lysistrata, folks. Man, it is such a fun play, and required a great deal of bravery You know, I hate when they talk about how brave actors are for losing weight, or women appearing on camera without makeup, or that. But I got to tell you, asking the ladies to walk on stage in bizarrely constructed underwear, and the men to put on giant fake phalluses, that's bravery, folks.
Yeah.
And to hold a straight face while they have these amazing scenes, while the audience is cracking up around them. It was wonderful. It was empowering for all of the ladies, I think, involved, and that was so much fun. That was so much fun. So, yep, there it is, ladies. Les Estrada. Can't believe I didn't mention you earlier.
That's all right. I'm glad you remembered. Okay.
So anyway, yeah, more opportunities. Yeah, I'd love to do some more Greek stuff too, but great contemporary. But you're right. It is a general love of theater. I don't want to do only one kind of show.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, you're leading me down into the next question,
Yeah.
which is, what are some dream shows that you have as an actor or a director? And I don't want you to limit yourself in feeling like, today I don't want to say too many or whatever. Just go for it, because it's always such an interesting thing in common conversation amongst the theater community. But
yeah.
and also,
That's tough.
is there anything Jane Goodall related that you would want to do at this point?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, there was an actor. I wish I knew who it was. It was probably somebody like Ian McKellen or somebody amazing like that, who I think their answer to that question was like, what's your dream show? And he said, the next one.
Ah.
And I know that's cheating, but it is kind of like, what's my next opportunity? What's the next thing that I get to dig into that excites me? I mean, there's so many of the shows I've done, I didn't know I wanted to do them until they came up, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, that'll be great.
Okay.
And then you dig in, and then suddenly it becomes one of the most exciting things you've ever done, So, that being said, I really want to do the frogs. Just a Greek play. I really want to do that. I just think that would be a lot of fun to do. I want to do some more Oscar Wilde. Just because I think he was brilliant, and I'd also love to work on a production of Gross Indecencies, which is about his trial. Because as brilliant and amazing and funny as his plays are, his life and what happened to him is tragic and sad.
Yeah.
And almost unforgivable. You look back at history, just unforgivable, I think. There is this incredible, I don't know if people are aware of this essay that he wrote, De Profundis. I think I've said that right. If I've said it wrong, I apologize. But he wrote this whole essay from jail, from Kilmainham jail. And it is heart-wrenching. If you get a chance, it's available online, free.
We'll provide a link to it.
Yeah. I think in Project Gutenberg, all those places have it. And it is just, read it. I don't even want to spoil it for you, but it's really about a person just looking at their life and their relationships, and it's a mixture of despair, because he was ill when he was in jail and all that. Anyway, but also there's hope in it, and there's humor, and it's just incredible. And you can ask just about any actor who's ever been in a show that I've done props for, that I use the text of it for props. I put it in little known secret. You always need some kind of text for to put in a prop. So it's been in newspaper articles, in a fake newspaper. It's been in books. It's been in journals. Yep, it's in props all over the place. So, yeah. So read the essay. I'd love to do Gross Indecencies because I think, it's still topical. Just the persecution of the other, and is still very important to talk about. And it was a bit of a witch hunt, which I think those still go on today.
Definitely.
So, so that's something. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to, don't make me pick my favorites, Jeremy.
Okay.
But really, I'm open to lots of different opportunities.
Are there any favorite roles you've played along the way that you'd like to talk about since you've been able to work?
So many. And you know what? It's so funny. I think a lot of actors do this, and a lot of theater people do this. They mark their lives by what show they were in.
Yeah.
Like they don't remember what year something happened, but they know what show they were working on when something happened.
Yeah.
And, when I remember when we did Lion in Winter, and I was way too young, but bless you, Clark, for casting me as Eleanor of Aquitaine. By God, that was a show. But we opened 3 days after 9/11.
Okay.
It happened,
Yeah.
So everything, I think everybody was so much more raw and open, and, everything had so much more meaning. But that show, because it's very much about family and family warring against each other and all of that, it just struck a chord, and also an amazing script, a gift of a script for any actor, and an incredible role. Boy, I really want to revisit that one when I'm closer to the right age, because that was a great opportunity right there. Probably the first onstage role I had here was as a witch in the Scottish play. I'm not going to say it.
We're currently in Gamut.
Just in case anybody's superstitious. I am not in that way, but I respect those who are. But I would love to get back to that show. But that was an amazing experience for the first time on stage here as an actor in Harrisburg. So that was pretty cool. Oh, there's so many really fun ones. You know what? The first repeat role I ever did was as Columbina in A Company of Wayward Saints, which is a play about a company, a commedia dell'arte company.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done it in high school. We had actually done a severely cut down version for a competition piece. And it was so much fun. And that was the first time I'd ever repeated the same role twice. And so I did it here at Gamut. And that was a lot of fun. But also, because it's so much about the relationships between actors and actors who have worked together for a long time.
Yeah.
And then the whole theme of it is sort of the life of, the history of man, but they end up boiling it down to birth and love and marriage and death and all of those things. And it's a really profound show, but also a lot of fun, but so much about relationships of artists. So that was a really special show too. God, so many. Like yeah. I've been very fortunate. I've been very lucky and very fortunate. I have no doubt about that. So.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, now I want to talk to you a little bit about your upcoming directorial endeavor, which is As She Likes It.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna let you take the reins here because what I know, I don't want to spoil.
Right.
And I don't want to make any assumptions about what you want to get out there.
Yeah,
so, please.
So, several years ago, as a stage door production, I had done a show we call it the Sonnet Show, shorthand, where I asked regional playwrights, to take one of Shakespeare's sonnets, and write an original play inspired by it. And we did a show, and we also had Mike Banks put a couple of them to music, and they became songs, and there were some dance pieces, and it was an amazing experience. And I thought the show turned out really well. We were all very proud of it. And I was like, I want to do another thing like that, because working with playwrights on original plays was an exciting prospect. As somebody who's done a lot of work with a dead playwright, working with live ones is really kind of fun. And so anyway, what I hit on is, let's talk about Shakespeare's women. And, I've had an opportunity to play a number of the roles, or work on shows with these great female characters. And every time we have auditions, there's always twice as many, if not 3 times as many women who audition as men, scrambling for these roles. And, sometimes depending on what you're doing with the show, there's a lot of different ways you can cast it. And so women get to play men, and they, the gender of certain roles changes, and all of that kind of stuff. But some of these iconic roles that everyone points to, the Lady M's, and I'm not going to say it again, the Lady M's, and the Rosalinds, and the Ophelias, and all of those, everyone's scrambling to play these. But there's always so many questions. And I think many of those roles, forgive me, Will, but some of them are underwritten. And I think maybe that's because they were played by boys, and they weren't a focus, didn't get the same kind of focus from the writer. Some of them are written very well. I mean, Rosalind is very fleshed out and wonderful. But anytime I've ever worked on them, if I'm playing one of these roles, I have so many questions that, you always say in Shakespeare, it's all in the text. Well, you can dig, and you can dig, and you can dig, and you can find maybe there's something there, but it's so open to interpretation. And I feel like a lot of their stories are unfinished, a lot of the women in the Shakespeare plays. And, sometimes they have to be unfinished because of the nature of the play. Because the play is not focused on this theme, it's focused on this theme. And therefore, this storyline doesn't get to play out to some sort of satisfaction. So all of those things, and not necessarily to be critical of the work, but just kind of putting those out there as experiences working on them. So I thought, what can we do to take some of these intriguing, fascinating roles that are out there in the canon and give these women a broader voice, give them more agency in some way. And so that's what I tasked the playwrights with this time. I reached out to a whole bunch of playwrights, some of the folks I had worked with before on the Sonnet Show, but then also some other playwrights I had met through the Lancaster 24-Hour Play Project last year before. It's almost a year and a half ago. And I reached out to those folks as well. And what I got back was just an incredible array of plays and really exciting diversity of interpretations of that mission, if you will.
Yeah.
And one of the things I asked them, I said, please try to write something that is only female roles in the play. And most of the playwrights were able to do that. Some of them had some negotiations with me. But in the end, I have cast the play, and I have cast, I think it's 17 women in the show. So it is going to be an evening of these short plays that are all different, and some of them are taking these characters and putting them in a completely different context.
Okay.
But with the same sort of dynamic or the same sort of relationship that they had in their original play. Some of them are telling a story that is maybe a scene we never saw in Shakespeare's play, something that happened off stage, or a scene that happens after the play, or before it, or whatever. So that's what As She Likes It is, and I, the name of the show is obviously just a play on Shakespeare's As You Like It. And the show is going to run in August. The dates.
Well,
it opens on the 12th.
Well, that's another part of this is the Capital Area Theater Show is a new thing.
Yeah.
I plan on doing it in series of 10 episodes. But I wanted to ask you now if you'd be willing to sit down again and talk closer to the production date.
Okay.
So we can get a little bit of an update of how the process has gone for
Absolutely.
you.
That would be great.
Okay.
I would love to.
Sweet.
Love to.
Well, I guess we're going to get ready to start wrapping up.
Okay.
And I was wondering if there was anything you'd wanted to relay as an anecdote about your time in theater that defines anything for you, and also give you the opportunity to say anything you'd like to, because we're recording on Mother's Day. If you wanted to do any thing related to any of the mothers you've played, or you talked about your mother taking you and encouraging you in theater, or any stories about her having to see you in a show or relate to you as a different type of character, or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny that this is on Mother's Day, because I came today from rehearsal down in Lancaster for Hamlet, and when the actor Jeremiah, who's playing Hamlet, showed up, he handed me a Mother's Day card.
Aww.
And then he handed one to Dan, who's playing Claudius. Because Hamlet has that line where he's like, father and mother are one flesh and all that stuff. It's really funny where he calls Claudius his mother, it being a little rascallion. But so that was really, really sweet. And I will say that Gertrude is there's a mother character for you. I have to say, when I played Eleanor of Aquitaine, I was playing a woman 30 years my senior, and my mother just happens to be 30 years my senior. So bless you, Mom. Every family gathering leading up to that show, I would just sit there and stare at my mother and watch her. And she didn't know that, but now she does. Whoops. But really, it was about mannerisms. It was about, some of the outward, things that I was copying. Not that my mother is Eleanor of Aquitaine in any way, shape, or form. She's a very loving person. But, so, you use what you can. And obviously, I am not a mother myself. But playing Corinne and Gideon's not, and that sense of loss, that was a tough mountain to climb there, to try to relate to that in some very real way, but I will say, yes, my mother has always encouraged me, and bless her, she has traveled to see my shows here in Harrisburg, but there were so many probably painful productions she got to sit through in high school, and probably also some very painful orchestra concerts and all of those things, but always encouraging me to do, hey, if I want to be in the orchestra, be in the orchestra. If I want to be in the chorus, be in the chorus. If I want to do a show, do a show. All of those things, just always being very encouraging. She always was. And it's tough now, I think, because I do a lot of really difficult shows sometimes, like heart-wrenching things the pathos can be pretty heavy in some of the shows that I've worked on, that I've been on stage, that my poor mother has to come and watch. But I know, like, sometimes I see her afterwards and she just cries, and we hug and we have a good cry, but I think that's all a really good thing, And I thank her for that. I thank her for that, encouraging me and just to be emotionally open and available. And I think that's what helps me do my job. You know.
Yeah.
So she was a really important is a very important part of that.
Well, wonderful.
So.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave off.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sitting down and talking.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again, hopefully very soon.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.